a society, have various kinds of beliefs and thought processes about a man and a woman separately. In the country where goddesses are worshipped in various corners and cultures, the same woman has been labeled a lot of things as per the conventional society norms. Going through all sorts of experiences of struggle and survival, pain, bad decisions, wrong men, experiences in various working domains, different cities, this bold and beautiful author and columnist on sexuality and gender is spreading awareness about the facts, desires, and the truth about women. Straightforward, not fearing to call a spade, she has been talking about the status of single women in India and how impractically, painfully, the society, including men and women alike, sees the single women, especially the ones who are making a mark in this world with their works and contributions. Sreemoyee Piu Kundu has been featured on NDTV, DNA India, just to name a few, and her books Faraway Music, You've Got the Wrong Girl, Sita's Curse, Status Single, and Cut are some of the most prominent works in this domain of raising consciousness about women in our country. She has been awarded the Women of Worth Awards by NDTV for her contribution to the literature domain. Sreemoyee is not just inspiring millions of lives, especially of women, but she is intensifying humanity to her best possible extent. Welcome, Sreemoyee, to this podcast, Intensify Humanity, and I'm so glad and honored to have you here today with us.
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Sreemoyee. And no doubt you are an amazing writer. And most importantly, before that, let me say you are an amazing thinker. And your works have been like everywhere, NDTV, DNA. But let me ask you, since the beginning, how did this journey begin?
Well, I'd have to answer this question in two parts because you call me a writer and a thinker. I think my writing journey began pretty early because I grew up a very lonely child in a sprawling ancestral home in Kolkata, and I was raised by a very resilient and gutsy single mother. So, my mother was a very young widow, and I had lost my biological father to the shadows of schizophrenia. So we battled that stereotype and that social shaming and stigma. But I was raised in my grandparents' home, in my Dadu Dida's home, my maternal grandparents. And they were old and they were sick, and my mother was a busy teacher who in the evening had to, even give tuitions to keep the home fires burning. So um, it was a very lonely childhood, I think, intensely lonely, cripplingly lonely, if I can use that word. And I've always found it easier to express myself through the vocabulary of my thinking and using language. So I actually used to write a lot in Bengali, but 20 years away from my mother, my mother tongue in a sense in my hometown has now, rendered me incapacitated. So I write in English. But I would do a lot of poetry. I think my first works of writing were actually imaginary letters to my deceased father. And because I used to sorely miss, his presence, not knowing even what happened to him till I was a certain age. So writing began then. Also, our childhood was technology free, thankfully. I mean, that's one of the regrets I have about the present generation, that how we give technology, access to technology so easily to children, and we've completely murdered and annihilated imagination, free thinking, because they just go to school where they are pressured into rote learning and indoctrinated to just be academically brilliant, but there's really no release of the mind. So for me, books were my constant companion. We had a beautiful library. Every birthday, when people would gift me things, or even on Christmas, when my dadu, he pretended to be Santa Claus, and he would write me a letter and keep it under the Christmas tree. He always would give me books. So I think literature was always an important part of my life. My maternal grandmother wrote beautifully in Bengali, and it was under her sort of influence, that I started reading a lot of Bengali books as a child, a lot of Bengali poetry. later on in life when I was in college, etc. So, that's how the writing part happened. And then, of course, I've been a fairly successful mainstream journalist for about 15 plus years. And I think journalism or being a journalist is always going to be in my DNA, because I actually, abandoned or sacrificed a very prestigious scholarship to go to Cambridge and study archaeology, because I did history in Jadavpur University in Calcutta and I was a gold medalist. I've always been academically very brilliant. Because I wanted to be a journalist. So I gave up an in-lakh scholarship to actually go and work in the hard, cold, freezing city of Delhi at a salary of 4,500 rupees in the year 2000, primarily because I loved to tell stories. I loved to visit new places. I loved people. I think because I grew up in such a, like I said, cripplingly lonely environment, I was always drawn to stories, to conversations, to people and adults, because, my immediate circle was always adults, my mother, my grandparents, the house staff in our home who were also very old, their children who were much older than me. So I was always intrigued by adult conversation. I was far maturer than an average child growing up. So that's how it happened. And then in 2013, I wrote my first book, the critically acclaimed Faraway Music, which was, considered to be a promising debut novel. And that's how I actually began my literary foray. I had no idea then that this was what I would do full time, and that, branches would grow on the same tree, because I do a lot more than just write now. But at that point of time, there was this, novel that was birthed in me, and I had to just, bleed onto my laptop Word document and let it out into the world. But I think like you spoke about consciousness. So my consciousness actually changed when I wrote my second book, which was Sita's Curse, which went on to become and still continues to be one of India's best selling novels. And it's also considered and touted as India's first feminist erotica, because it really, I think, unleashed a wave of thinking where women unabashedly claimed the right to pleasure, spoke about pornography. Through the book, I also addressed systemic sexual exploitation like marital rape, like godmen sexually abusing young women on the pretext of educating them or blessing them or indoctrinating them. And Sita's Curse was a trailblazer. It also won me the coveted Loreal NDTV award, which was a popular choice award. So lakhs and lakhs of people voted me over the other three very worthy, people who had been nominated. That's how my journey started, actually. But if I look at my writing career, I think it's really very diverse, because every book is different from the other. Sita's Curse was erotic in nature. You've Got the Wrong Girl was a ladlit. It was the first time a ladlit had been written by a woman instead of a man. Status Single, which was my fourth book, was my first non-fiction, and it was interviews with over 3,500 urban single women all over India. And then there was Cut in 2019, which was a play. So Cut is a trilingual play. It's in Marathi, French, and English. And it was performed at the National School of Drama, directed by the very, very acclaimed Abhilash Pillai. It opened the Bharat Rang Mahotsav in 2019 in January. And now I'm going to start writing my memoirs later this year. And I've just completed writing, a family saga, which is a sweeping family story, family drama, if I might call it, of a displaced Bengali family over 3 generations, called All Our Other Lives. So I think, you know, being a being a writer, I've not done one thing, which also sort of exposes who I am. I'm a restless soul. I'm a seeker. I'm never easily satisfied with any one thing. And I think my prolific writing career is example of that.
This I just felt like I should listen more and more to you about your the about the books, about experiences. But I have to ask you here, the book status single, where you said you have interviewed over more than 3,000 people, right, from the urban cities. What inspired you to write the book, and why the name status single, or what is the story behind it?
So I am single. I'm 43 now. Uh, I turned 40 in 2018, which is the year the book came out. And well, I had been experiencing, the tumultuousness of being single. Everything from relationships to housing discrimination to watching my friends battle abusive marriages, face very, very difficult custody battles. I had seen a lot of the discrimination at workplace where divorced women were treated in a certain way. I've seen ageism at work where you are, diversity, inclusion, tom-tomming about bringing back women into the workforce, but women above 50 or women above 40 even are considered to be completely, invisible in a sense. I was also seeing, I had seen through my mother the struggles of being a widow with a child and all the difficulties that she faced, including, I think, a lot of social stigma. And I was almost feeling that when we friends met, we were all on dating apps now. We were still meeting jerks, complete misogynist, toxic men. I had friends who's, like I said, who were choosing to be brave single mothers through adoption. One of my friends, who's a very well-known director in Calcutta, Anindita Sharbadikari, she chose to become a mother through IVF. She was, quite a trailblazer in that realm, and she was open about going and buying a sperm and having a child. So all around me, I was seeing this. Of course, at that time it was only my friends, but we were all single. A lot of us, either through divorce or not having ever been married. A lot of our mothers were single because they were all widowed. And I had seen my mother go down that road, and my mother's remarried now, but and to a wonderful human being, but who's also about 14 years younger than my mother, and he's a South Indian. But my parents have a great marriage by God's grace and by the blessings of our elders, and I'm very proud of my family. We also, about 10 years ago, we decided to foster our house help's daughter, Sri Lekha, who's my sister, who's now 11, and she studies in a very well-known school of convent missionary school of Calcutta. So even fostering her, I we decided to do this because she and her mother were actually abandoned by the father on just a day before her fifth birthday. And I was just seeing that there was this class divide, right? When we thought of domestic violence or when we thought of abandonment, we always somehow felt this doesn't happen in upper middle class India, or this doesn't happen in our kind of families, the famous adage. But it was happening. And I was asking myself that, is the destiny of my maid, quote unquote, my sister's mother, who's our trusted, wonderful house staff who we also love and look after, is her fate any different from, my friend's fate? A friend of mine also had been abandoned by her husband after 17 years of marriage and two children. And he had just left. Later on, she came to find out that he had already married some other woman and, had a child with her, but she had no clue. And I was asking myself that, therefore, is the fate of single women the same in this country? And there's absolutely no support system apart from your family, who sometimes shun you and ostracize you and treat you even worse than your in-laws or your spouse, who might have been abusive or exploitative or raping you or beating you up or cheating on you. Women were also financially, here we talk about, so many women at the workplace, but so many women, when I even induct them into the community, have all left their jobs when they had children, and they've just uprooted their life to fit into their husbands' homes, hearts, beds, banks, just to be the perfect wife. And once these marriages were breaking off, women were stuck because they couldn't even afford a lawyer's fee. And I was seeing a lot of this. I was seeing that even when I lived in a cosmopolitan city like Mumbai, which is so said to be so free. Women come back at any time in the night, and it's sexually sort of liberal. But even there, when I worked in Times of India as an editor, I couldn't get a house because I was single and I was a journalist. And my brokers used to tell me, though I was going to take the apartment on a company lease, my brokers would always tell me that, madam, aap na ye ring, I always wear a ring on my left hand, but it's usually silver. So they would always tell me, madam, aap na heere ki anguti pehen ke aiye. And they would constantly refer to me as bachelor girls. Bachelor girls, it's a very common name in Bombay. So many housing societies, they discriminate, and they treat a single woman no better than a sex worker, with all due respect to sex workers. um, so I was seeing all of this. Then the Me Too erupted, and most of the victims, or most of the survivors of workplace sexual harassment, had all been single when these incidents had happened with them. Be it my friend Vinta Nanda, who spoke out against Alok Nath. I mean, she was a young writer director when she was molested, or Tanushri when the incident against her happened, or even my friend and comrade from journalism, Priya Ramani. They were all single women who had been treated in a inappropriate manner, and by these older married sexual predators. And the system protected these men, and these single women spoke up years later, and we salute their courage, and we share their pain and their humiliation and their suffering. But the truth is that at that point of time they were powerless, because the system doesn't support you, right? So all these things were boiling and bubbling and birthing inside me. And I was actually then doing a very popular column with a website called Daily O, which is a property owned by India Today, which was called Under the Belt, or Below the Belt, actually. And it was a very hard hitting sort of everyday look at life issues, a social commentary of sorts. And I would write a lot about being single, how single women are slut shamed, how men consider you to be available, how older single women, the troubles they face, how women are cheated out of their inheritance by their brothers, how the thrust of caregiving for aging parents inevitably falls on the unmarried sister or the divorced sister. And most of the time, single women in India, because there's no really assisted community living, either move back in with their parents, or the parents come and stay with them after a point. So it's really a difficult, complex equation. So I was writing about all this, and that's when my agent in Delhi, he said, Shri, why don't you think of this as a book? And I told him that, well, there's only one condition on which I would write this book, that it's not going to be my memoir. It's not Sreemoyee's autobiography of being single. I want to interview women. And what started as very candid addas over the phone, interviews with my girlfriends who were single, my cousins who were single, my didis who were single, some of my mom's friends who are now widowed and single, became a extensive, elaborate, ostentatious, and, if I may say so myself, ambitious research project which spanned about over a year, and led to millions of interviews. I mean, I ended up interviewing, as I said, over 3,500 single women, and not just unmarried women, but these were divorced women, these were widows, these were abandoned women, these were women with disability, these were trans women, these were LGBTQ, bisexual, lesbian, polyamorous women. So I also realized then, during the course of mapping and recording and writing this book, that what a diverse population we are. I mean, there's no one kind of singlehood in this country. It's huge, it's diverse, and the potential and the need, the pressing need for building a support group, a platform, a network, a community that would connect women all over this country and make us feel that we are not alone. Because that's what I felt when I was interviewing. Oh, this happened to you. This happened to you. Oh, this happened. Like I said, when it happened to my sister's mother, when they were abandoned, I realized that look at my friend. She's a well known, journalist. She drives around in her car. She's got her own home. And she meets the same fate as an illiterate, poor, probably not as glamorous looking woman. So, women, the thing is women, it's not about rich single women, poor single women. Of course, the profile that I chose was urban single women, because I felt that the hypocrisy and the double standards are much more in urban middle class India than in rural India. Because honestly speaking, in rural India, firstly, very few women are single by choice. They all get married. I mean, in Bihar, children, I mean, at the age of 8 and 9, girls are getting married. So most of them are single because their husbands have deserted them, or the husband has married four other women and impregnated more women, or they are widows. But in urban India, there were still women who were single by choice, right? Or who, because of their sexuality, could not marry a woman because Section 377 wasn't yet decriminalized. And I also realized that urban single women actually don't have a community. Rural single women have communities like Ekal Nari Shakti Sangathan, which is based out of North India, Rajasthan. Ginny Srivastav, I mean, she's an iconic woman leader in the space of rural single women. But urban single women were also in an equally sort of predictable and precarious condition. And there was absolutely no support because parents were still ill treating them, lawyers were still exploiting them, corporations were still harassing them and keeping them out. And it was still, see, in India it's very difficult for a woman to live by herself, because we've never learned that. We are always reared. From the time we are born, we are labeled as a paraya dhan. So we grow up knowing, okay, I'm going to inherit my mother's gold necklace or Banarasi sari, but on my marriage. That's the biggest milestone for a woman's life. And idiotically, we've connected our womanhood to our womb, which is the biggest fallacy, because we're like on a ticking time bomb, right? This biological clock is nothing but like this huge bomb. Like we go on a suicide mission. So I'm always saying this, that when a girl is born, it's almost like you put her on a suicide mission. You strap this jacket called the biological clock around her womb, and you say, okay, your time starts now. And God help you if you're 30 and you're a virgin, if you're not a mother, and if you've never had a boyfriend, then even your friends will look at you like some kind of an outcast. Like, are you ugly? Are you stupid? Like, are you frigid? Like, what is the reason no man likes you? Because that, the validation, the approval, the lust, the desire, the legal sanction or the security of a man is conditioned and hardwired into our brain as the ultimate recognition of our womanhood. And therefore, this movement becomes even more critical. And I'm often asked if, the single women's movement is actually telling women not to marry, to be childless. Actually, none of the above. I don't believe in the institutional structure of marriage, but I'm a sucker for romance. But, my point is that a man or a love story cannot define my womanhood. I am Sreemoyee, and I will be Sreemoyee whether or not I have a guy to sleep with or marry or have children with. you know my identity, my womanhood, my sense of being a Indian woman of the 21st century is not necessarily intertwined with if a man likes me, if a man chooses me, if a man finds me pretty, if a man gives me a job, if a man gives me an opportunity, if my father calls me daddy's little princess, or my boyfriend says, oh, you're my queen, it doesn't matter. you know so this movement is for the empowerment of women. It's telling women to be financially independent before biting the bullet of marriage. It's telling women to choose motherhood and not be pressured into your first child, second child, going for IVF, whatever. It's your choice. It's your womb. You choose what you want to do with it. It's telling women that you don't need to stay in a marriage where you're emotionally deserted, where you're physically abused, where you're disrespected or cheated on. It's telling women you can get back to work at any age. It's telling women to prioritize mental, physical, financial health. It's telling women to take pride in other milestones of their life, getting a PhD, buying a home, buying a car, being an aunt instead of a mother. So I want to shift the lens of a woman's self worth from marriage and motherhood to me. And by me, I don't mean Sreemoyee, I mean you, I mean they, I mean every woman out there.
This is so powerful, Shrimoy. Like I cannot describe in words because, of course, I second you on that, and because being in Bombay and I'm sure in other urban cities as well, we all have come across these nitty gritty of the status hood to getting rented flats, the discrepancy in the jobs, in the different domains, and everywhere, Uh, even the women, the friends who are of your like of your life, they also sometimes pass on these kind of judgments and comments. So it is very unfortunate that women are also conditioned in such a manner since a childhood. So my next question is, do you think the root cause of these kind of thought process is somewhere related to the upbringing and childhood conditioning of these kind of women?
What do you mean, these kind of women? I mean,
These kind
that.
of movement means in for example, let's say I have the women, or my friends who are already married, and they think that, oh, you're not married, so okay, so when are you going to marry, when are you going to settle? So means sometimes, like for some people, settling down means only marriage. So do you think that settling down means only related to marriage?
So firstly, I have a huge problem with that word settling down, because in my life, I'd never settle for anything. I don't settle for, substandard relationships. I don't settle for half assed friendships. I don't settle for work that doesn't pay me or fill my soul. And I don't settle for people who don't respect me. So, as a person, I have never settled in my life. Had I settled, I would have just taken up that INLAC scholarship. I would have gone to Cambridge, met a nice Bengali, Atel, intellectual boy, probably got married and produced two children. And I respect women who get married, who have children. Like I said, everything is a matter of choice. And finding companionship, finding a wonderful partner like my mother was able to find, and uh, zero in on a lovely man, and she was blessed, I think, to find love the second time around after such a difficult marriage and after the traumatic death of my father. But that, as I said, it for me, the word settling down is extremely derogatory. um, I would never settle down. Even if I were to find true love and, a companion, I think we would just soar. I mean, I would hope we would fly, not settle. Also, I've always said this, that sometimes, and I don't like saying it too much nowadays. I'm mindful of this because I hear it so much around me. Women are women's worst enemies, and I think that it's an indoctrination. See, it is like, how you make someone a terrorist, by brainwashing them, right? Telling them that you need to kill people, and this, I'm not referring to an Islamic terrorist. I mean, there's right wing terrorism, there's all sorts of toxic sort of hatred in this world. So this is, the religion does this also, right? Where you look at what's happening in our country now. There is so much of communal divide, so much of mob lynching, this this division of human beings and Indians on the basis of, are you a Bhakt, are you liberal, are you Hindu, are you Muslim, which I feel is so sad, because I think as a culture we are such a plural, syncretic, cosmopolitan country which accommodates so many languages, so many religions, so many ways of life, festivals. I think that's the beauty, of our culture. So, the point is that women, mothers, like I'm always telling women in my community that educate your mothers and, re indoctrinate them and teach them things that they might not have had access or privilege to know before. Because the truth is that, I mean, our mothers probably grew up knowing only one life. As I said, see, at 10 or 11, a woman has her period. The moment she has her period, you connect it with childbirth. Oh, now she can produce another human life, which means now we have to start planning her and prepping her and making her look beautiful and lose weight and be a graduate and speak good English and be fair, tall, slim, all the adjectives that you see in a matrimonial ad, so that she can hook a boy from a rich upper caste family who will take care of her. Now, what does that even mean? Like, why should men be taking care of us? I mean, I sometimes think of the pressure that patriarchy puts on the other sex. I mean, thank God I'm a woman. I mean, of course, there are atrocities committed against my sex, and I shudder every day when I read the newspapers, and I feel scared. What is the world that my sister, who's now 11, is going to inherit? But having said that, why have we even trapped men into this provider, my bap, this kind of ji hazur kind of cage? I'm sure one of the reasons Indian men are so toxically dysfunctional and insensitive, and have no gender sensitization, is because, in a way, we've done that to them. Like, I was just talking on a webinar where I was saying that, will an Indian woman ever marry a man who says, you work, I'll stay home and look after the kids? Nobody. Nobody. Will our parents ever give us in marriage to a guy? The first thing a man is asked is, what is your CTC? Even if he's ugly as hell, I mean, I hate to use that term to, call somebody ugly, but I'm saying, even if he's physically not attractive by conventional standards, if he's a CEO of a company, or he's from IIT IIM, he can get the prettiest girl. He can get the best looking girl probably because of that. So I just feel that, to a certain extent, you know women do this to women. And, I mean, mothers, I mean, I interviewed women who said that their mothers were applying Fair and Lovely on them from the age of 7 and 8. They were putting them on crash diets. They were literally starving them because they were so frightened that my fat daughter will never be able to get a good jamai, you know. So it's all toxic. Like, even the way marriage is performed. I mean, I'm talking of a Hindu marriage here, where, the daughter will throw a mound full of rice behind her shoulders, symbolic of repaying the Pitridan and the Matridan. Can you ever repay your parents for the love that they have in their hearts for you? So by doing this, and by literally banishing your daughter and making her cross over the threshold, women are so frightened to break out of a marriage, because Indian women, grown Indian women, urban Indian women, working women, are shit scared. Oh my God, my father will have a heart attack. Oh my God, what will my mamas say? What will my kakas say? What will my, Jade ji say? What will my Tau ji say? Mere bhaiya kya bolenge? Arey, how does it matter? Your bhaiya is not sleeping on the bed that you slept in, But look at it. I mean, we have so much of dowry deaths even now. And shamelessly, families of women, pander to demands of men. मेरे को गाड़ी दे दो, मेरे को ये दे दो, मेरे को बैंक में इतना पैसा दे दो. Look at the way women dress up during their marriage. I mean, we have to introspect on these things, wearing all the jewelry, as if she's some kind of a Christmas tree on display.
I have
So,
to definitely share over here, like the points that you mentioned. That's the conditioning. Like, not only women, the men are also put into this trap of, doing this. So the conditioning that these women and men have got since childhood. So, regarding the dowry, even I know some of the colleagues, ex colleagues, and friends who were literally put into the thing of, this party is giving this much money. So, who is better?
Hmm.
So, you judge accordingly and then they marry. So, it is really a very, I would say, you know, I
Yeah,
don't
but
know. It's like,
do that, right? We do that. I mean, the parents of the girl, I mean, this is a culture where, I mean, I've heard this a lot in northern India when I lived in Delhi for over 15 years. हम तो बेटी का घर का पानी भी नहीं लेते. क्यों नहीं लेते? क्यों नहीं लेते भाई? बेटी का घर का पानी क्यों नहीं पिएंगे आप लोग? बेटी को इतना पढ़ाया है, इतना लिखाया है, इतना आपने उसको मतलब यू हैव मेड हर इनटू अ सेल्फ कॉन्फिडेंट वुमन. फिर पानी क्यों नहीं पियोगे? क्योंकि पानी के ऊपर उसका पति का नाम लिखा है. पानी तो वो आपको दे रही है. शी इज ऑल्सो अर्निंग. मोस्ट वुमेन आर अर्निंग एंड पेइंग द EMI, looking after the kids, looking after the in-laws. So we have to break the gilded cages of these gender roles, which have been coming down from ages immemorial. And like I said, we have to create other milestones for women, you know, which is not only her baby shower, her wedding day, her engagement, and this fairy tale illusion of marriage, which is perpetuated by books, popular culture, by social media. We have to see marriage for what it is. I mean, look at the rates of divorce in this country. Look at the rates of dowry death. Look at the, marital rape. Look at the rates of domestic violence in India, one of the highest in the world. So most of the women are molested, raped, beaten. They are treated like shit by their husbands. It's in the most intimate relationship that the grossest form of abuse happens. Uh, yeah, so I think it's been coming down the centuries, really, and we have to be the change that we want to see. We have to develop, like we tell men, grow a pair of balls. So like I tell women, grow your own. If you, obviously we can't grow balls, but grow a pair of wings, and carry your not your pepper spray, but carry your sword, your mental sword. I don't mean that I'm telling women to actually carry swords, but I'm saying slay these stereotypes and smash patriarchy. And of course you're going to be rebellious, you're going to be considered to be bohemian, or the bitch, or the bin biahi beti who's too muffat or too aggressive. So be it. So be it. Revolution will happen. Empowerment is not going to be handed to you on a silver plate, and by a waiter in a three-piece suit. Empowerment will come through women's feminist movements and revolutions, and this is one of the many streams in this sea of currents that I think every Indian woman is now a part of.
and even the word feminist is being taken in a very different ways by different people. Like,
Mm.
many people don't even understand the real word of feminism and they just think it
So
completely
I
out
think
of their
feminism
words.
is evolving. I don't think feminism is as a shrill male bashing rhetoric anymore. I think to me, feminism has always meant a fight for equal rights. To me, my feminism is akin to my humanity, is akin to my humanism. So I don't see it as diverse at all. Also, I'm quite surprised sometimes when I see women proudly declaring on social media, I'm not a feminist. I mean, sometimes I feel like shaking them up and saying, what's so wrong in being a feminist? Like,
Here
what do
is
you.
the point, because people think that that's the point, that many people find the definition in a different manner, where many people and even women think that the being a feminist means you're bashing the male, so they, like, males start to avoid them, hate them, but they don't know the real definition of feminism. That's a sad part. Just like rightly you mentioned, right, it is more about humanity. It is more about seeing as an individual, as a human being, and not like an object or anything else. So that's
Well,
something.
I find men actually surprise me these days. Of course, they're still idiots largely, but they surprise me when, because I'm meeting a lot of men for my work. I don't mean for pleasure or on dating apps, etc., but I meet a lot of men for work, and they're very supportive of the community status single. They all reach out to me saying, Shri, how can we get you to speak in our offices? I have a daughter. Somebody will say, I have a sister who got divorced. Somebody will say, I was raised by a single mom, Shri. Somebody will say that, my cousin, has just come back home. She's battling a very, very difficult divorce. Somebody will say, I've got two sisters who want to go to IIT. They don't want to get married. Somebody will say, my sister is a lesbian. So I find men these days, actually, they don't say it out as loud, because even on social media or Facebook, it's largely a women's bitch fest or slug fest or support fest. But I think men quietly are telling us that, can you help us to join you? We are tired of being the enemy. We want to be seen as respectable, good human beings. And of course, most of us, or a lot of us, are the rapists, are the husbands who beat wives, are the fathers who will not allow you to wear sleeveless and come back home past a certain time, are the brothers on Khap Panchayats, are the misogynist politicians who blame a woman's attire and her rape, to her rape. But we want to be the change makers. But I see women going the other tangent. I see a lot of women now saying, oh, I don't want to be a feminist. I'm not a feminist. And I think they're scared that, what if men start hating us? Because, like I said, we don't know. Our entire life is hinging on male approval, male validation, male lust, male desire, male approval, man giving us the job, man appreciating us in the home, man appreciating us when we are going out. We are looking at the husband and saying, kya main moti lag rahi hu? And the husband saying, nahi nahi, tumne to bahut weight loss kiya hai. Or the man outside the trial room, or the male HR person who's not checking out your boobs and actually checking out your resume. So this is a man's world. And we, probably there is a certain section of women, and sadly so, it's a lot of these so-called liberal women who call, they put up pictures of sari packs and girl tribe and all that, but then they say, oh, we are not feminists. So actually they're scared. They don't want to lose the male vote, I would say, because they're underconfident, they're toxic at some level, and they're deeply, I think, misogynistic themselves. And I feel they don't have a sense of self-worth. So they feel that, what if I lose my men friends? What if I'm considered to be like this, this activist type? I've been called, somebody once told me, oh, but Shimo, you're so glamorous. I said, what does that mean? No, I thought you would be an activist type. A woman told me this. And I said, what does activist type mean? I mean, I have the highest regard for my feminist mentor, Kamla Bhasin ji, or, for a hardcore activist like Medha Patkar, or, for instance, a writer turned social activist like Arundhati Roy. I bow down and I salute the strength and the fight and the movements of these women. So I don't know what women mean when they say these superficial, silly things. Oh, you don't look like an activist. Oh, you don't look 43. I'm telling you, a lot of our, I think, women's empowerment movement, apart from, changing gender conditioning and invoking gender sensitization, also has to educate, re-educate, and rewire and recondition women.
It boils down to the point that we need to see each other as just human beings at the basic level. And when that humanity comes into picture, then the entire story starts changing. So, what is the most important feature of your community, Status Single? And any women out there can join this community who are actually single, be it mothers, be it women of any age?
The community belongs to everyone, like I said. The sort of, how do I say it? The precondition to get into the community is that you have to be single. And by single, I mean, basically women who are not legally married. That's the my definition of anyone to join the community. And like I said, it is not a clarion call telling women that marriage is bad or men are bad. No, not at all. What we are saying is be empowered, be self sufficient financially. Do not tolerate disrespect, abuse, injustice, any form of systemic exploitation and violence. Fight against that. That is what we are trying to teach and help women achieve through our community.
That is beautiful. And I must say, this movement is no doubt going to shake up a lot of age old beliefs and shed out the conditioning, definitely. So let's ask Sreemoyee that who is she when she is not writing or when she is not, on an interview with somebody or anything. So, what do you do other than these in your free time as hobbies or something? What do you love to do?
Well, my love is now, I married my lover. That's the way I say it. So, when you marry your lover, what happens? It becomes, passion becomes a job. So my passion, my writing, which was a hobby initially to begin with, became my profession, journalism. Then creative writing, which was something that I did, just basically to release my emotions, and which I always found cathartic, like I told you, since a child, is now my bread and butter. So other than that, I'm a very very, very family oriented person. So I love spending time with my parents and my darling sister, who's blossoming into such a intelligent, matured, sensible, and beautiful little swan. So I'm her fun element in her life. So we go out, we take a vacation once a year as two sisters, and people are so surprised because she's 11 and I'm 43. So we always get the question, how can you have such a young sister? I think they mentally try to imagine my mother and my father, that what kind of family is this. One sister is 43, one sister is 11. But I think we have a beautifully unconventional family, and I think we are an inspiration to many families which are not heteronormatively conditioned, or they can look at fostering, they can look at adoption as a way of caregiving and nurturing someone. Well, I love to cook. I love to cook. So I cook almost every evening, especially during the lockdown. My sister's mother, who's our house help, was the only house staff because she's 24 hours with us. So in order to give her a break, to allow her to rest and relieve herself, I used to do, and I still do, all the cooking. I'm into fitness. At 40, I took a vow to commit to my physical health. So I work out. I'm actually training for 4 packs. I love a very muscular, chiseled, not a thin body, but a strong body, a disease free body, hopefully. So that's what I'm working towards. Travel is another passion. I do love to travel, but when you're self employed, you have to cut your coat according to your cloth. So a lot of my traveling is in my mind. My community actually, takes up a lot of my time. I honestly these days find myself having lesser and lesser time, even for ma, even for baba, even for my sister, because there's always someone calling, there's always a lawyer that I have to talk to, or a doctor, or just fly somebody down, and we're connecting people. So slowly I think I see this shaping into an organization someday. And like I tell my sister that when I'm dead and gone, you must continue the movement, and find other sisters like yourself, to share the vision with you. So that's what I do. I also shop. I love to shop. I'm very girly. So I love clothes and my saris and jewelry. Yeah, and art. I love going to art galleries, love music. So music is on 24/7 in my home, in my, on my earphones. Yeah, I guess that's what I do.
That is just amazing. And I'm sure this vision is going to be huge. And yes, you are doing an amazing work. And that's why your time is getting, packed up so much. But here is another question. If not a writer or a columnist or a journalist or, a lover of art, who would Shrimoy be?
Well, when I was growing up, I had a dream like 99.9% of girls in this country to get married and have children. And I wasn't very ambitious either. I would, probably have been very happy to be just a homemaker. And now I realize that what a snake pit I would have walked into. Because God forbid if my marriage had not worked out, I would be like so many women in my community who today are crying tears because they have no savings, the family doesn't support them, or they have really old parents who are physically dependent, financially dependent on them. The brothers are married, they've washed their hands off. So if I wasn't a writer, I would still probably be a journalist. I love journalism. As I said, it's in my blood. Or I would have been a professional playback singer, because I actually wanted to be that when I was growing up. I used to sing like a dream. So I probably would have been a singer.
That is new. That is something really interesting to know that you also love to sing. Maybe someday we'll hear you sing and you
Oh,
can
I don't
also.
sing anymore, my dear. I don't sing anymore. I actually gave up singing when I lost my maternal grandmother. It's a dark phase of my life. It's a scar I think I carry. Maybe someday when I'm completely healed and freed from my karmic debt to her, I will find the courage to sing again in public. Now, of course, I sing at parties. I sing, and I'm always singing. I'm not a bathroom singer. I actually never sing in the bathroom. I'm always listening to music in the bathroom, but I never sing. So I'm far better than a bathroom singer. But yeah, someday maybe a single. I mean, who knows?
That's amazing. That's beautiful. And Shrimoy, before we wrap up, uh, is there any message you would like to give the men and women out there?
I'm not a big one for messages, because I think for me, life is about being unlearning. And I think we've had such a difficult year with the COVID. In my family, there have been many deaths of my close relatives, loved ones. I think life is very fragile, and the only thing that we can be blessed for is our health, and is the physical presence and blessings of our elders. So I would just like to tell women, and I hope you have a lot of single women listening to your podcast, because it is truly inspiring what you're doing also. So I want to tell single women that please don't look at your life as a failure. If you've not got married, or your marriage has broken up, or you have lost your husband to tragic circumstances, or you are alone in a city, your children are grown up and they live away, and you're facing an emptiness syndrome, or you're a woman with disability, or you are a woman who is not able to come out into the open about her sexuality. I think womanhood is a very complete state. We don't need anyone else or anything else to complete us. If we can access the full power of our divine feminine, I think, like the Gita says, Aham Brahma. So the universe is you, and you are the universe. So if we can really channel into that energy and look at our feminism as our human, our human struggle, our human movement, our human rights battle, I think we will fight automatically for this world to be a more compassionate, more egalitarian, more just, and most importantly, a more loving place, where men and women are not drawing swords at each other and killing and raping and attacking and trolling and slurring and putting each other down. But we will just realize that we are two peas of the same pod, and we will love each other, we will fight for each other, we will listen to each other, we will be more mindful of each other's strengths and differences, and together hopefully we can grow.
That is just beautiful. And thank you so much for this amazing, amazing message to all of us together. So, thank you so much, Sreemoyee, for coming to this podcast and having this amazing discussion, because it is needed. Someone needs to speak, someone needs to raise the awareness. And you are doing an amazing thing. And this movement like it is going to spread like anything to help other women out there. So congratulations and all the best on this endeavor.
Thank you. Thank you. Like I said, now as soon as you get off the podcast, you have to, get your butt down to the community. We make the community together. There are 74.1 million single women in India. 39% of the female population is single. We have the highest ever number of single women in the country right now. And all of you have to make the movement successful, sustainable, and strong. So Sreemoyee could be the face of it, or maybe God chose me as the force to begin it. But I hope it lives on far more than me, and it reaches far more many women, far many women than what I can possibly humanly reach out to. So each of you have to take, it's like a relay race where we just take the baton and we just carry it forward. So I hope you, as a successful, strong, self-assured, empowered single woman of the 21st century at 31 years of age, you are going to also induct new members into the community, join the community, be a role model, be a spokesperson, help single women in your circles to feel that they are not alone. That's really my dream and my vision.
That is beautiful, but I still think I'm not yet successful. I'm still in the learning phase and I've just begun, but that is definitely beautiful. Thank you so much, Sreemoyee. And that is
Thank you.
Sreemoyee Piu Kundu, who, with her amazing works and amazing endeavor and struggle and all her experiences, is helping out women out there to make something out of their life, to realize their self worth. So she is not just inspiring people out there, men and women alike, definitely, because it is not also possible without men in our society together, but she's also intensifying humanity to the best possible extent. Thank you for tuning in.